Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was born as Adolf Hitler on the 20th of April, 1889, in Braunau am Inn, a small town in Austria-Hungary, which is now part of Austria. He lived for 56 years and died in 1945 during the final days of World War II. Hitler came from a lower middle-class family. His father worked as a customs official, while his mother was known for being caring and supportive. As a young man, Hitler dreamed of becoming an artist, but he was rejected by an art academy in Vienna. During his years in Vienna, he developed many of the political ideas that would later shape his life. Hitler's background was heavily influenced by the political atmosphere of Europe in the early 20th century. Nationalism, ethnic tensions, and political instability were common during this period. After moving to Germany, he served as a soldier in World War I. Germany's defeat in the war deeply affected him. Like many Germans, he felt anger and humiliation over the country's loss and the harsh conditions imposed afterward. These experiences helped shape his extreme political views. What made Adolf Hitler become a dangerous leader was a combination of his powerful speaking ability, his extremist ideology, and the political and economic crises facing Germany. During the 1920s and early 1930s, Germany suffered from severe economic problems, unemployment, and political instability. Hitler promised national renewal, economic recovery, and a return to German strength. Many people supported him because they believed he could solve the country's problems. Once he gained power in 1933, however, he gradually removed democratic institutions, silenced opposition, controlled the media, and established a dictatorship. One of the most destructive aspects of Hitler's leadership was his hatred of Jewish people. Historians explain that this hatred was based on anti-Semitic beliefs and conspiracy theories rather than evidence. Hitler falsely blamed Jewish communities for Germany's problems and promoted the idea that they were enemies of the nation. Through propaganda, his government spread these ideas to millions of people. As his power increased, discrimination turned into systematic persecution. During World War II, Nazi Germany carried out the Holocaust, the organized murder of approximately 6 million Jewish people. Millions of other victims, including Roma people, disabled individuals, political opponents, and others, were also persecuted and killed. What made Adolf Hitler different from many other leaders was the extent of his control over society and his ability to combine propaganda, political power, and fear. He built a system in which loyalty to him became central to the government. Massive rallies, carefully planned speeches, and state-controlled media helped create a powerful public image. At the same time, secret police and harsh punishments discouraged opposition. This combination of persuasion and terror allowed him to maintain authority for many years. Adolf Hitler remains one of the most widely known figures in world history. He is not popular because of positive achievements, but because of the enormous impact he had on the 20th century. His actions led to World War II, a conflict that caused tens of millions of deaths across the world. The Holocaust and the destruction caused by the war continue to be studied as warnings about dictatorship, hatred, propaganda, and unchecked political power. Today, Hitler is remembered primarily as one of history's most dangerous and destructive leaders, and his story is often taught to help people understand the consequences of extremism and intolerance. Ivan the Terrible was born as Ivan IV Vasilievich on the 25th of August, 1530, in Kolomenskoye, near Moscow. He lived to the age of 53 and died in 1584. He became the first ruler in Russian history to officially take the title of Tsar, a title similar to emperor. Today, he is remembered as one of the most feared and controversial leaders ever to rule Russia. Ivan came from the powerful Rurik dynasty, a royal family that ruled Russian lands for centuries. His father, Vasily III, died when Ivan was only 3 years old. His mother, Elena Glinskaya, died a few years later under suspicious circumstances. As a result, young Ivan grew up surrounded by noble families competing for power. Many historians believe that he witnessed cruelty, betrayal, and political violence throughout his childhood. He often felt ignored, threatened, and isolated. These experiences helped shape his personality and influence the way he ruled when he eventually gained power. What made Ivan become a dangerous leader was a combination of personal trauma, absolute authority, and growing paranoia. After becoming Tsar in 1547, he initially introduced reforms and worked to strengthen the Russian state. However, over time, he became increasingly suspicious of the nobles around him. He feared that powerful families were plotting against him. His distrust grew even stronger after the death of his beloved wife, Anastasia Romanovna, whom he believed may have been poisoned. As his fears increased, Ivan responded with extreme brutality. He created a special force known as the Oprichniki, whose job was to eliminate anyone suspected of disloyalty. These men carried out arrests, torture, executions, and confiscations of property. One of the most infamous events of his reign was the massacre of Novgorod in 1570. Convinced that the city was planning to betray him, Ivan ordered a campaign of terror that resulted in the deaths of thousands of people. His rule became associated with fear, punishment, and absolute obedience. Despite his cruelty, Ivan is still popular in history because he transformed Russia into a stronger and more centralized state. He expanded Russian territory, weakened the power of rival nobles, and laid foundations for a more unified country. Some people see him as a ruthless tyrant responsible for immense suffering. Others view him as a powerful ruler who strengthened Russia during a difficult period. This combination of achievement and brutality has made Ivan the Terrible one of the most fascinating and widely discussed leaders in world history. His life remains a powerful example of how personal experiences, fear, and unchecked power can shape the actions of a ruler and affect an entire nation for generations. Vlad the Impaler, whose full name was Vlad III Dracula, was born around 1431 in the city of Sighisoara, located in what is now Romania. Historians are not completely certain about his exact birth date, but he is believed to have lived to about 45 years old before his death in 1476 or 1477. He was a ruler of Wallachia, a medieval principality situated between powerful neighboring states. Vlad came from a noble family known as the House of Draculesht. His father, Vlad II Dracul, belonged to a military order called the Order of the Dragon, which was dedicated to defending Christianity. The name Dracula originally meant son of Dracul and had no connection to vampires during Vlad's lifetime. Vlad grew up during a difficult and violent period in Eastern Europe. The region faced constant threats from the expanding Ottoman Empire, and local rulers often fought among themselves for power. As a young boy, Vlad and his younger brother were sent as hostages to the Ottoman court as part of a political agreement. Living away from home and witnessing political struggles at an early age likely influenced his personality and leadership style. After returning to Wallachia, he became involved in fierce battles to gain and maintain control of his throne. What made Vlad become a dangerous leader was his belief that fear was one of the strongest tools of power. He ruled with extreme harshness and used brutal punishments against enemies, criminals, and anyone he believed threatened his authority. His most infamous method of execution was impalement, where victims were placed on large wooden stakes. Historical accounts describe thousands of people suffering this fate during his rule. Vlad believed these severe punishments would discourage rebellion, reduce crime, and strengthen his position as ruler. While some viewed him as a defender of order, others saw him as exceptionally cruel. Despite his cruelty, some people remember Vlad as a strong defender of Wallachia against foreign threats. Supporters viewed him as a leader who protected his land from invasion and corruption. Over the centuries, opinions about him have remained divided. Some see him as a national hero who fought for independence, while others remember him mainly for his brutality. Pol Pot, or Saloth Sor. Pol Pot was born as Saloth Sa on the 19th of May, 1925, in the village of Prexbov in Kampong Tom Province, Cambodia. He died on the 15th of April, 1998, at the age of 72. He came from a relatively well-off rural family compared to many other Cambodians of his time. As a young man, he received an education that was unavailable to most people in the country. Later, he traveled to France to study, where he became interested in communist and revolutionary political ideas. Those experiences helped shape the beliefs that would later influence his actions as a leader. Pol Pot came from a period when Cambodia was experiencing major political instability. During the 1960s and 1970s, the country faced civil war, foreign intervention, and social unrest. Pol Pot became a leading figure in the communist movement known as the Khmer Rouge. He believed that Cambodia should be transformed into a completely self-sufficient agricultural society. He rejected modern cities, private property, religion, and many forms of education. His vision was extremely radical and aimed to rebuild the country from the ground up. What made Pol Pot become a dangerous leader was his willingness to use violence on a massive scale to achieve his goals. When the Khmer Rouge took control of Cambodia in 1975, Pol Pot became the country's most powerful leader. Almost immediately, millions of people were forced to leave cities and move to rural labor camps. Families were separated, and citizens were required to work long hours under harsh conditions. Anyone suspected of opposing the regime could be arrested, tortured, or executed. Intellectuals, teachers, doctors, religious leaders, and even people who simply appeared educated were often targeted. One of the most frequently asked questions about Pol Pot is why he killed so many of his own people. The answer lies in his extreme ideology and deep suspicion of anyone he believed could threaten his revolution. Pol Pot wanted to create what he considered a perfect communist society. He viewed many groups of people as enemy, including educated citizens, ethnic minorities, religious communities, former government workers, and even members of his own movement who were suspected of disloyalty. As a result, large numbers of people were imprisoned, executed, or died from starvation, disease, and forced labor. Historians estimate that around 1.5 to 2 million people died during Khmer Rouge rule, making it one of the deadliest periods in modern history. What made Pol Pot different from many other leaders was the extreme nature of his vision. While other dictators often sought industrial growth, military expansion, or political power, Pol Pot attempted to eliminate much of modern society itself. He emptied cities, abolished money, shut down schools, and tried to force the entire population into agricultural labor. Few leaders in history have attempted such a complete restructuring of a nation in such a short period of time. Pol Pot remains widely known today because of the enormous human tragedy associated with his rule. His name has become a symbol of political extremism and the dangers of unchecked power. The Khmer Rouge era is studied around the world as an example of how radical ideology, fear, and authoritarian control can lead to devastating consequences. Museums, memorials, books, documentaries, and historical research continue to examine his actions and their impact on Cambodia. Although decades have passed since his rule ended, the memory of that period remains deeply important in understanding both Cambodian history and the broader lessons of the 20th century. Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong was born as Mao Zedong on the 26th of December, 1893, in Shaoshan, Hunan Province, China. He lived for 82 years and died on the 9th of September, 1976. He grew up in a farming family, and his father was a relatively successful farmer. Unlike many rulers who came from noble or wealthy backgrounds, Mao's early life was closely connected to rural China. As a young man, he became interested in politics, history, and revolutionary ideas during a period when China was facing poverty, foreign influence, and political instability. Mao came from a generation that witnessed the collapse of China's last imperial dynasty. The country was divided by warlords, weakened by foreign powers, and struggling with economic hardship. Many young Chinese believed that dramatic change was necessary. Mao became attracted to communism, a political ideology that promised equality and the removal of class divisions. He eventually joined the newly formed Chinese Communist Party and spent years building support among peasants and workers. Mao's rise to power was shaped by decades of conflict. He helped lead communist forces during the Chinese Civil War against the nationalist government. After years of fighting, the communists won in 1949, and Mao became the leader of the newly established People's Republic of China. Many people initially saw him as a revolutionary hero who had unified the country and ended years of civil war. What made Mao become a dangerous leader was the enormous power he held and his willingness to pursue radical policies even when they caused severe human suffering. One of the most controversial periods of his rule was the Great Leap Forward, launched in 1958. Mao wanted to rapidly transform China into a powerful industrial nation. Villages were organized into large communes, and ambitious production targets were imposed. However, poor planning, unrealistic goals, and government pressure led to a catastrophic famine. Historians estimate that tens of millions of people died during this period. Another major event was the Cultural Revolution, which began in 1966. Mao encouraged young supporters known as the Red Guards to attack ideas, traditions, and people considered enemies of the revolution. Schools were disrupted, historical artifacts were destroyed, and many intellectuals, officials, and ordinary citizens faced persecution. The movement created years of political chaos and fear throughout the country. Despite the controversies surrounding his rule, Mao remains popular among many people for several reasons. Supporters credit him with unifying China after decades of war, improving national independence, increasing literacy, and laying the foundations for the country's future development. His image remains an important symbol in Chinese history. At the same time, critics point to the massive human cost of his policies and the suffering experienced by millions during his campaigns. Today, Mao Zedong is remembered as one of the most influential and controversial leaders of the 20th century. His leadership transformed China in ways that are still visible today. Some view him as a revolutionary who helped build modern China, while others see him as a ruler whose decisions caused immense tragedy. Understanding Mao requires looking at both sides of his legacy, recognizing his achievements as well as the devastating consequences of many of his policies. Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin was born as Ioseb Vissarionis Zayugashvili on the 18th of December, 1878, in the city of Gori, which was then part of the Russian Empire and is now located in the country of Georgia. He lived for 74 years and died on the 5th of March, 1953. Later in life, he adopted the name Stalin, which means man of steel. He became one of the most powerful and controversial political leaders in modern history. Stalin came from a poor background. His father was a shoemaker, and his mother worked hard to support the family. As a young boy, Stalin was intelligent and performed well in school. He eventually attended a religious seminary to become a priest. However, instead of continuing a religious career, he became interested in revolutionary politics. He joined movements that opposed the rule of the Russian Empire and became involved with the Bolshevik, the revolutionary group led by Vladimir Lenin. After the Russian Revolution of 1917 and the creation of the Soviet Union, Stalin gradually rose through the ranks of the Communist Party. Following Lenin's death in 1924, Stalin outmaneuvered his political rivals and eventually became the undisputed leader of the Soviet Union. Once in power, he transformed the country through rapid industrialization and major economic reforms. Factories, railways, and heavy industries expanded at an incredible pace, helping turn the Soviet Union into a major world power. What made Stalin become a dangerous leader was the way he used power. He believed that any opposition to his rule was a threat to the state. As a result, he created a system where criticism was often punished severely. During the 1930s, he launched a series of political purges known as the Great Terror. Millions of people were arrested, imprisoned, deported, or executed after being accused of disloyalty, often with little or no evidence. Fear became a powerful tool of government under Stalin's rule. Another reason Stalin is remembered as a dangerous leader was his use of forced policies to reshape society. His collectivization program forced many farmers to give up private land and join state-controlled farms. The policy caused widespread suffering and contributed to severe famines in several regions. At the same time, Stalin's government maintained strict control over information, education, and public life. Despite the suffering associated with his rule, Stalin remains popular among some people for several reasons. Supporters point to the rapid industrial growth of the Soviet Union and its victory over Nazi Germany during World War II. Under his leadership, the Soviet Union emerged as one of the world's strongest military and political powers. Some view him as a symbol of national strength and stability during a difficult period in history. Today, Joseph Stalin remains one of the most debated leaders ever to govern a country. To some, he was a leader who transformed the Soviet Union into a global superpower. To others, he was a ruler whose methods caused immense human suffering. His legacy continues to be studied because it demonstrates how enormous political power can shape both the success and the tragedy of a nation. In your opinion, who is a dangerous leader? Please comment down below.